It was a Friday night, dark and rainy, typical of those that made most people prefer to stay at home. However, Alex was different. He was an avid collector of antiques and was always looking for the next rare piece to add to his collection. The rain hitting the windows of his house only drove him further to explore the vast world of online trading. And it was that night, while scouring Craigslist for a new find, that something caught his eye. The ad's title was short but mysterious: unrivaled antiquity free to anyone. Tonight only. The ad description didn't contain many details, other than the address of a nearby location and the promise of something truly extraordinary. There were no photos attached, just the suggestion that the person interested should appear in person to find out what it was all about. Alex's curiosity was instantly piqued. He had made good deals on Craigslist before, but had never come across something so enigmatic. The thought of a free, unique antique was tempting. He knew there was an element of risk in this quest, but his passion for antiques overcame any caution. So, with one click, he contacted the advertiser, who identified himself only as Mr. Black. Mr. Black's response didn't take long to arrive, and Alex was surprised by the brevity of the message. It said, "If you are interested, come to the old abandoned mansion on Hawthorne Street at 11 p.m. The door will be unlocked. Do not bring anyone with you, and do not tell anyone about this negotiation. The offer is valid for tonight only." Alex didn't know what to expect, but the idea of finding something truly unique and rare was irresistible. He looked at his watch and saw that he had enough time to reach the abandoned mansion, which was a few miles away. He changed his clothes and grabbed a flashlight, anticipating that the place might be dark. When the clock struck 10 p.m. and the rain fell incessantly, Alex headed towards the abandoned mansion mentioned in the address in the ad. The route took him along dimly lit secondary roads, adding to the atmosphere of mystery and excitement. He drove with the feeling that he was about to embark on an unexpected adventure. The mansion appeared before his eyes like a haunting from the past. It was a majestic building, but it had been abandoned for decades, its majestic facade already faded by time and its structure almost swallowed by vegetation. The broken windows cast unsettling shadows in the darkness of the night. As Alex parked the car near the mansion, a shiver ran down his spine. He was alone, with the rain creating a veil of white noise around him. The mansion, despite its decaying beauty, had a gloomy air that could not be ignored. He waited in the car with the lights on until the clock said 11 p.m. That was when he saw a figure approaching in the darkness, a man dressed entirely in black, with a hat lowered over his face. Alex knew it was Mr. Black. The salesman approached the car with silent steps, and his face remained hidden by the shadows of his hat. He handed Alex a rusty key, which glowed dimly in the flashlight light. Alex took it cautiously, barely able to see Mr. Black's face, which remained hidden. Without saying a word, Mr. Black gestured towards the mansion, indicating that that was where the treasure was located. Alex felt tense, but the promise of something extraordinary drove him forward. He got out of the car, and Mr. Black disappeared into the darkness, leaving Alex alone in front of the haunted mansion. With the key in hand and a flashlight on, Alex hesitated for a moment. Alex watched the mysterious figure of Mr. Black disappear into the darkness, and his heart skipped a beat. The idea of entering the abandoned mansion, alone and during a rainy night, was unsettling, but the promise of incomparable antiquity compelled him to face the unknown. He knew he couldn't back down now. Holding the rusty key in one hand and the flashlight in the other, Alex approached the mansion's entrance. The rain fell in heavy drops, creating a constant, unsettling sound. The leaks that dripped from the balcony ceiling contributed to the sinister atmosphere that permeated the environment. With the key in the lock, he slowly turned it, and the door creaked as it opened. Upon entering the mansion, a shiver ran down your spine. The smell of mold and decay hit him, and the darkness that enveloped him was suffocating. He flicked the flashlight switch, breaking the darkness and illuminating a shadowy hallway. The light revealed the degradation of the house, peeling walls, furniture covered in dusty sheets and cobwebs that occupied every corner. Cautiously, Alex followed the hallway, remembering Mr. Black's instructions. He was supposed to find the treasure in this mansion, but what exactly awaited him remained a mystery. The mansion seemed endless, with hallways and doors stretching in all directions. Alex continued his exploration, trying to ignore the creaks and rustles that echoed through the walls. He was determined to find the mysterious object promised by the advertiser. After a while, he finally found a door that stood out from the others. It was made of solid wood, adorned with intricate carvings. The feeling that this was the right door overwhelmed him, and he approached it, key in hand. The key fit perfectly into the door lock, and when you turned it, the metallic sound echoed through the hallway. Carefully, he pushed the door open, which creaked open, revealing a dark room. He turned on the flashlight and went inside. In the center of the room, Alex found a piece covered in a dark cloth. Her heart quickened with anticipation as he approached, lifted the fabric, and revealed the hidden treasure. He was stunned to discover an antique mirror with a frame adorned with intricate details in stained glass. The mirror was a masterpiece from a distant time, a relic that was probably worth a fortune. Alex was fascinated by her beauty, but also by the fact that there was no explanation as to why someone would give something so valuable away for free. He stood there, contemplating the mirror and the feeling that this was just the beginning of an unforgettable discovery. However, apprehension began to take hold of him. The offer seemed too good to be true, and the atmosphere in the abandoned mansion was suffocating. That's when he noticed something disturbing. The reflection in the mirror did not match his own image. His face seemed distorted, with empty eyes staring at him. Alex took a step back, stunned by the ominous sight. Frightened, he tried to turn around and leave the room, but before he could react, the door closed with a bang. The sound echoed through the room, and Alex found himself locked there, in the darkness, with the mirror in front of him. Fear gripped him as he stared at the disturbing reflection in the mirror. Their eyes seemed to penetrate your soul, as if they were whispering dark secrets. Darkness closed in around him, and Alex knew he was trapped in that room with something he couldn't understand. Alex found himself in an increasingly sinister situation. The dark room, lit only by the light of the flashlight, looked like a prison. He was alone, but he felt the presence of the haunted mirror in front of him. It was not just a simple antique, but something sinister that defied reason. Alex's breathing quickened as he struggled to open the locked door. He tried to force it, to shake the handle, but the door remained firm. It was as if she was sealed, and any hope of escape was dissipating with every second. As Alex explored the room in search of another exit, he realized that the mansion's architecture was beginning to reveal its true nature. The walls seemed to twitch, the covered furniture shook, and the old pictures hanging on the walls seemed to whisper disjointed stories. The mirror, however, remained unchanged. Its stained glass only reflected the darkness of the room, but Alex had the feeling he was looking at something much darker. Time seemed to distort, and the room became increasingly oppressive. Suddenly, Alex heard a sound coming from behind a dusty curtain in the corner of the room. He walked over and pulled back the curtain, revealing a smaller mirror hanging on the wall. The reflection showed a disturbing scene, himself, with empty eyes and an expression of pure horror. The mirror was reflecting his own agony. The discovery left him in a state of shock. He couldn't understand what was happening, but the only thing he knew was that the mirror was the key to his situation. He turned his attention to the larger mirror, the one that had imprisoned him, and wondered if the same would happen to the smaller mirror. Carefully, he approached the larger mirror and tried to touch it. His hand passed over the cold surface, but there was no resistance. He felt pulled in, as if he were being sucked into the darkness of stained glass. Suddenly, he found himself in a strange and surreal world. It was as if he were inside his own mirror, immersed in a dark and distorted landscape. Twisted trees stretched out in all directions, their branches moving like tentacles searching for prey. Alex was surrounded by shadowy, indistinct figures who seemed to have come out of nightmares. They whispered unintelligible words and moved towards him. He tried to back away, but he couldn't move. I was trapped in that surreal nightmare. As the figures approached, a feeling of dread overcame him. He knew he needed to find a way to escape this twisted world and return to the abandoned mansion. With all his strength, he tried to focus on his previous reality, in the dark room with the macabre mirror. Finally, with a Herculean effort, he found himself back in the room. The door was open, as if the mansion itself had given way to his will. He left the room quickly, his heart still racing from the terrifying experience. The mansion was exactly as he had left it, but something had changed. The mirror, which previously reflected an empty darkness, now showed a different image. He approached the mirror and saw his own reflection, but his eyes were empty, lifeless, as if a part of his soul had been ripped out. The feeling of horror that enveloped him was indescribable. He knew he couldn't stay in that mansion, and that the only way to escape the nightmare was to leave it behind. With unsteady steps, he headed for the front door, and when he finally emerged into the rainy night, he felt as if he had escaped from an abyss. As the rain continued to fall, Alex looked at the abandoned mansion with a mix of relief and dread. He knew that the experience he had lived was not a mere illusion. Something sinister was linked to the mirror and the mansion, and he couldn't let that darkness consume him. Back in his car, he drove off, vowing never to venture into mysterious overnight Craigslist deals again. He carried with him a macabre memory of a night that would make him question the fine line between reality and nightmare. Alex drove through the dark, rainy night, his mind filled with confusion and fear. The terrifying experience inside the abandoned mansion still echoed in his mind, and he could not forget the macabre mirror and the disturbing visions he had witnessed. The mirror was not a simple antique. It was a source of unfathomable darkness. When he finally arrived home, the rain was still falling incessantly. He locked himself in his apartment, feeling restless and vulnerable. He sat on the couch, watching the rain fall outside, and tried to understand what had happened. Slowly, he began researching haunted mirrors and cursed objects. He found stories that resembled his experience, but none of them offered concrete answers about how to get rid of a curse. It seemed he was alone in his dilemma. While searching, he noticed something strange in the room. His own reflection in the mirror above the fireplace seemed distorted, his eyes empty and dull. A chill ran down his spine, and he stood up to take a closer look. The figure in the mirror was not him, but a pale shadow that watched him maliciously. Desperately, he turned away from the mirror, but the distorted figure followed him, moving independently. It was as if the mirror had become a window into the same nightmare he'd experienced in the mansion. He felt trapped in his own home, haunted by the darkness emanating from the mirror. In an act of desperation, he picked up the mirror above the fireplace and covered it with a sheet. The distorted figure disappeared, and the feeling of relief was immediate. He knew he needed to get rid of that cursed piece, but he didn't know how. The next morning, with the mirror still covered in the corner of the room, he decided to seek help. He found a specialist in cursed objects, Dr. Samuel Hartman, and scheduled an appointment. The specialist agreed to visit your home and assess the situation. When Dr. Hartman arrived, he brought with him an aura of serenity and wisdom. He examined the covered mirror and listened intently to Alex's account of his experience in the abandoned mansion. The expert seemed aware of the complexities of curses and supernatural objects. With a cautious movement, Dr. Hartman removed the sheet covering the mirror. Alex held his breath, fearing the return of the distorted figure. However, the mirror was empty, only reflecting the empty room. The specialist looked closely at the mirror and then turned to Alex. "The curse of that mirror is real," he said gravely. "It serves as a portal to a dark realm, a place where lost souls and evil entities reside. You were lucky enough to escape the nightmare, but the curse still remains." Dr. Hartman explained that in order to break the curse, the mirror needed to be purified and sealed properly. He began to prepare a ritual, gathering candles, incense, and other ritual objects. Alex watched anxiously as the specialist worked meticulously. The ritual lasted for hours, and throughout the entire time, a heavy atmosphere hung over the room. The mirror seemed to resist the purification, with distorted images appearing and disappearing. Dr. Hartman recited ancient words and chanted to ward off dark energies. Finally, with a determined gesture, the specialist sealed the mirror with a protective symbol and extinguished the candles. The room was silent, and the feeling of oppression was gone. Dr. Hartman turned to Alex and said, "The curse has been broken, and the mirror is sealed. However, you must not dispose of it in any ordinary way. It must be kept in a safe place where it cannot harm anyone else." Alex agreed, feeling profound relief. He thanked the specialist and promised to follow his instructions exactly. The cursed mirror would be locked in a safe and stored in a remote location where its curse would never affect anyone again. As Dr. Hartman left, Alex reflected on his terrifying journey and the lesson he had learned. He now understood that the search for valuable antiquities could lead to dark and dangerous places. He had faced the horror and survived, but he would carry that experience as a reminder that not all that glitters is gold, and that the world of antiquities hid deep and disturbing secrets. The cursed mirror was sealed, but the memory of his disturbing visions would remain, forever etched in Alex's mind, a memory of the night he faced the darkness and emerged narrowly unscathed.